Welcome to my video. In this video, I will tell you the whole story of the legendary animated movie series of our childhood, the Cars series, from start to finish in detail. Now, let's move on to the video. In our first movie, we see Lightning Mcqueen, the main character of our series. The final match of the Piston Cup, the most important cup of the Cars universe, will be played. After an intense season, the final race has finally arrived and the race begins. The most important racers in this final are Strip Weathers, named the King, who's in his last race, Chick, who follows him in second place, and Lightning Mcqueen, who's an amateur but has done very good work throughout the season. McQueen is full of himself and looks down on everyone. He also has no team leader and has problems with his team. Toward the end of the race, his ego is so high that he leaves the pits immediately and doesn't change his tire. And because of this, his tires start to blow out. King and Chick Hicks try to catch up with him. At the last moment, McQueen sticks out his tongue, causing all three drivers to finish the race at the same time. Since this is the first time this has happened in the Piston Cup, one more race has to be run. So they're scheduled to race again a week later. At the end of the race, McQueen loses his team members because of his arrogant and selfish behavior. He's so blinded by popularity that he even begins to loathe Rusty, McQueen's longtime sponsor. He then goes on a road trip with his semi-truck, Mac. Meanwhile, McQueen talks to his manager and learns that Dynaco will sponsor whoever finishes first in this race, and McQueen wants that. He then refuses to let the tired Mac sleep and tells him to go on. The gang surrounds the tired Mac, causing him to fall asleep, and the tailgate opens. Lightning McQueen slides onto the road. Then the horns wake him up and he sees a truck he recognizes as Mac and goes after it, but it is not Mac. He leaves the road and enters Route 66 highway and drives at full speed. Because of the high speed, the sheriff wakes up and chases after him. Seeing this, McQueen panics and wreaks havoc in Radiator Spring. He also broke the whole road in the middle of all this chaos. In the morning of that day, McQueen is brought to court for trial. He's brought before Doc Hudson. Doc Hudson wants him sent away immediately because he hates race cars, but his lawyer suggests that he stay and fix the road, which is then accepted. Now McQueen has to pave the road, but he doesn't want to do it and even tries to escape, but he can't because he runs out of gas, so he's forced to continue pouring asphalt. There he also meets Mater, a jalopy tow truck driver, and they meet and slowly start to become friends. They even wake up the cow tractors and go on an adventure. Using the power of his engine, McQueen finishes the road in just over an hour, but it's too bad. He did it in a hurry. But McQueen protests and says he's finished and wants to leave. Doc makes him an offer. If he beats him in a race, he'll let him go. But if he wins, he has to redo the road. Lightning McQueen, of course, laughs at this and immediately agrees. He thinks this race is going to be a piece of cake, but he can't take a corner on the dirt, and he loses control, so he runs into the cacti and damages them. Thinking about where he made a mistake, he breaks the road and tries to rebuild it, struggling until the morning, finally managing to repair the road completely, and then he immediately tries to take the corner he couldn't take on the dirt track, but he can't. Doc comes up to him and tells him if you're going hard enough left, you'll find yourself turning right. At first McQueen says, what kind of bullshit tactic is that? But then he tries and fails again. McQueen also has a good time with Sally, the lawyer of Radiator Springs, and begins to get more accustomed to Radiator Spring. He also learns that Doc is a legendary former racer and has won many Piston Cups. However, he's now retired from racing after a terrible accident and now sees the trophies as an empty bowl. McQueen then learns that this town used to be a very busy place and everyone used to drive through it, but then the state highway is built and nobody comes here anymore, and after a long struggle, he manages to repair the whole road, and he develops a friendship with the townspeople. Thanks to McQueen, happiness comes to Radiator Springs after many years. But just days before the race, a flock of reporters descend on Radiator Springs and learn that McQueen is there. It is Doc Hudson himself who tells him this. McQueen is immediately forced to board and is forced to leave Radiator Springs before he can say goodbye. After that, all is quiet. Then race day arrives and the race begins. But Lightning McQueen's mind is still on Radiator Springs and he can't focus on the race. He even narrowly avoids going into the wall, and that's why McQueen gets demoralized and falls far behind. King and Chick even give him a lap, but McQueen sees that Doc Hudson and his friends are there, and Doc Hudson is his team leader. Lightning McQueen gets fired up and immediately manages to close the gap with his power. McQueen makes fun of Chick and this pisses him off, so Chick blows out McQueen's tire. McQueen immediately goes to Guido's side and manages to return to the track with a record. Guido surprises the spectator. Later in the race, in the final laps, Chick pushes McQueen out of the field, but McQueen uses Doc Hudson's tactic and surprises Doc Hudson, and that's how he manages to take the lead. Chick says he can't be third, causing the King to have a huge accident, and the King is crushed. Seeing this, McQueen remembers Doc's accident and immediately stops at the finish line, turns around and tries to help the king. Meanwhile, Chick becomes the champion and is overjoyed, but the whole audience's attention is on McQueen. McQueen tells the king what he heard from Doc Hudson, that a trophy is an empty bowl, emphasizing that the Piston Trophy is not important, and wins everyone's hearts by helping the king finish his last race. Even though McQueen does not win the Piston Cup, he gains great friendships and camaraderie on this journey. He also gains a lot of fans. Although Doc says he'll sponsor the winner, they go to McQueen, not Chick. But McQueen prefers to stay with the Rusty's sponsor he once loathed and supports them. McQueen chooses Radiator Springs as the base for the new season and makes everyone come there and help Radiator Spring. We moved on to the second movie. The second movie starts with Leland Turbo sending a message to Agent Finn. Agent Finn then manages to sneak onto the oil platform in a boat. The evil scientist Professor Zundop follows him, but later in the movie he gets caught and has to flee before he can get enough information. McQueen returns to Radiator Springs after a grueling season, having won 4 Piston trophies. After having fun with McQueen, he wants to spend time with Sally. Mater's a little upset by this and joins them as a waiter. Later, as Mater goes inside to take their orders, the TV announces the World Cup sponsored by former oil tycoon Sir Miles Axelrod to promote renewable fuel. Then Formula One racer Francesco Bernoulli appears on the screen and starts bragging on air that he's faster than Lightning McQueen. Seeing this, Mater gets angry and immediately connects to the broadcast by phone. When the two start arguing, McQueen intervenes, realizing this. McQueen decides to participate in the race, even though he didn't plan to at first. They then attend a pre-race event. Finn is also there and meets the Japanese agent. Together they try to find the American agents, but Finn can't go because there are bad guys there who might recognize him. Then Mater runs to the water because he's eaten too much wasabi, but McQueen is being promoted there. So McQueen gets very angry and Mater doesn't realize he's there, so Mater runs to the bathroom. There he accidentally witnesses the attack on the American agent. He unknowingly passes on Agent Finn's information to him. Unaware of everything, Mater goes outside and follows someone he recognizes as Agent Shiftwell. Then comes race day, and different cars arrive from all over the world. Professor Zundop's men destroy some of the cars, and a group goes after Mater. The British agents realize this and get into Mater's ear and take him out of the race. Meanwhile, Mater, who was talking to Agent Shiftwell, accidentally realizes that the sound is not going through, and McQueen becomes confused and loses concentration. McQueen therefore makes a mistake toward the end of the race and loses the race to Francesco. Mater manages to escape from the bad guys with the help of Agent Finn. After the race, McQueen immediately goes to Mater and gets very angry and yells at him. Upset, Mater leaves a note behind as he plans to go to Radiator Springs, but he's still being watched by Professor Zundop's men. With the help of Agent Finn, they manage to escape the bad guys and board the plane. Meanwhile, they analyze the message planted on Mater by the American agent and search for a conclusion. Then they find a photograph. There's an engine in this photo and they have to find out who it belongs to. Mater suggests that they trace the rare parts that appear in the photo. Since they're looking for someone who might know the parts, they go to Paris and take it to the craftsman there. The craftsman recognizes the person who sold it, but does not know who he is. Then they notice a detail. They notice the junk cars that never came together. 2 days later, there will be a meeting in Italy where the second half of the World Cup will be played. The 3 agents take the train to Italy and notice that one of the jalopy cars looks a lot like Mater. In order to infiltrate, they suggest that Mater disguise himself and impersonate him. Meanwhile, Luigi and Guido take McQueen back to their village in Italy, but McQueen is very upset about recent events. Back on the agent's train, Mater finally manages to disguise himself. Finally, race day arrives and the eyes of the world are on the race. However, Sir Axelrod says that his oil roll, Alan Olin, is safe. Then the race starts and the meeting of the jalopy cars is about to start, and Mater, with the help of the agents, manages to sneak in. At that meeting, he plans to destroy the other oil companies because they have the largest oil reserves in the world. Professor Zay's men again interfere in the race and destroy some of them. Agent Finn sees this and tries to stop them, but in fact, he is set up, and there's a big accident in the race. Everyone crashes, but Francesco and McQueen are still in a head-to-head race. But at the end of the race, McQueen, who is slightly ahead, manages to win the race. McQueen is very happy, but when he sees the accident, he is upset and his joy is cut short. Everyone thinks that this accident was caused by petroleum fuel. So Sir Axelrod says that this fuel will not be used in the final, but McQueen still insists on using all in all. Hearing this, the villains are furious because they want to bankrupt all the oil companies in the world, and Professor Z orders to kill McQueen. Upon learning this, Mater panics and reverts to his old form. Mater escapes with weapons and tries to reach McQueen, but McQueen hears his voice but cannot see him. Soon the villains manage to capture him, after which Mater wakes up to find that he's suspended inside the Big Ben Tower in London. With him are Finn and Shiftwell, who are also captured. Meanwhile, the race is about to start. McQueen learns that Mater is missing. At first, he thinks about entering the race, but after what Axelrod and Finn say, he's eager to win this race for his friend Mater and says he'll participate. When the race begins, Professor Z's men have completed their preparations to kill McQueen, but for some unexplained reason, the weapons do not work on McQueen. They therefore switch to a plan to plant a bomb on McQueen. After the bad guys leave, Mater manages to get out of there and immediately goes to rescue McQueen. Finn and Shiftwell also somehow survive. When they get there, they find out that it was actually the bomb itself. McQueen arrives at Pitt, but Mater starts backing up to get away from him. McQueen keeps going after him. Mater uses his super fast rockets to get out of there, and that's why the bomb can't be detonated because it's too far away. Professor Z starts to run away, but is stopped by Finn. Mater and McQueen are cornered, but at the last moment their friends come to their aid and send them back. While this is going on, Mater figures it all out and rushes to McQueen. When he gets there, he tells him that the engine belongs to Sir Axelrod, because when he discovered the oil reserve, he killed All in All to discredit other fuel company. Just as it's about to explode, Mater manages to stop the bomb with a voice command. Mater is honored by the Queen for solving this case, and they return to his town. Then a show-off race is organized in Radiator Springs, with the racers participating in the World Cup. Finn and Shiftwell release Mater for a new mission. Mater says he'd rather stay in town, but asks to keep the rockets, and then joins the race with rockets. This is how the second movie ends. We're on to the third movie. McQueen has 7 piston trophies with this movie, and there is a sweet rivalry between Bobby Swift and Carl. Over the years, they have also managed to get a piston pass. While this was happening, Chick Hicks became a commentator. One day during the race, while McQueen was leading again, a new generation car passed him and took first place. This person is Jackson Strom, and he shocks McQueen and his friends. Years pass after this race, and the number of new generation cars is increasing. So, the old cars are fired and replaced by a new generation of cars. Former Piston Cup champions Bobby and Carl also decide to retire. McQueen, on the other hand, says he will not retire. After the races were held, McQueen is no longer as fast as he used to be, and was often passed by Jackson. In the meantime, McQueen doesn't give up and continues to improve. In the last race of the season, the Piston Cup match, Lightning McQueen, but Jackson approaches him comfortably and passes him sarcastically. McQueen is stunned to hear this, and everyone is slowly passing him. McQueen gets angry and starts to push himself too hard, but he can't keep up. Then he loses control and his tires explode. After hitting the wall, he somersaults and has a very serious accident. 4 months after the accident, McQueen is still recovering at Radiator Springs. There, Doc Hudson watches his accident and begins to fear that he'll never race again. Then Sally comes to him and motivates him. Lightning McQueen then tells the people of Radiator Springs that he's going to receive new training. He then calls the owners of Rusty's, his sponsor, and asks them to help him train. Rusty's has prepared a training ground for McQueen to study. However, when McQueen goes there, he learns that Rusty's has been sold by Sterling, a fan of McQueen. Sterling dresses him in a new skin to prepare him for the new season. Sterling then introduces McQueen to the new trainer, Cruz Ramirez. Cruz Ramirez puts McQueen in state-of-the-art training grounds, but McQueen cannot get used to the technology. When McQueen performs poorly, Sterling asks him to retire and become a brand face, but Lightning McQueen still doesn't want to give up racing. He then makes a deal with Sterling. He will have one last race, and if he wins the race, he'll be able to retire at any time, but if he loses, he must retire there and then. McQueen starts training on the beaches, but the power of the engine only allows him to reach 319 kilometers per hour, slower than Jackson. Then McQueen wants to go to a racing place called Thunder Hollow, so he covers his face with mud to avoid being recognized. Once inside, he doesn't get what he expects, as it turns out that it's not a race, but a death race track. McQueen participates in this race with Cruz, and they start running away to get away from the other car. McQueen gets hurt a lot in the process, but Cruz is declared the winner because he's not damaged. However, at the very end of the competition, the water tanker overturns and spills water outside, and this is how McQueen's true identity is revealed. They leave immediately. On the way home, McQueen gets angry with Cruz and is furious that he's still slower than Jackson. He even breaks the trophy given to him. Upset by this, Cruz starts to tell his story to McQueen. He has wanted to be a racer since he was a child. He even looked up to McQueen and admired him, but he didn't get his chance in a race and had to become a trainer. But Cruz leaves and McQueen continues on his way, but unhappy. When he hears in the news that Jackson has set a new world record, he begins to despair. He then goes to a place called Thomasville where Doc Hudson trains. On the way there, they convince Cruz to join them. After some racing on Doc Hudson's track, they meet Smokey. There, Smokey and McQueen talk. We learn that McQueen doesn't want to experience Doc Hudson's unhappiness after he quit racing, but Smokey tells him that Doc is not unhappy, that he was very happy training McQueen. Besides, Doc Hudson was the fastest race car in Thomasville, and no one could beat him until he had a rival. One day, Doc Hudson and the rookie face off in a race. Toward the end of the race, the rookie starts to pin Doc against the wall, but Doc makes an unprecedented move and jumps over him. Powered by the wall, wins the race, and everyone realizes he's going to be the best racer. Smokey takes him inside, where he reveals that Doc has always talked about McQueen. Together with Smokey, McQueen and Cruz start practicing. Later, McQueen manages to pass Cruz in a race, but when Cruz passes him again, he remembers his accident, which causes him to slow down. Nevertheless, race day arrives and McQueen participates. Also present are his friends and Smokey as group leader. McQueen misses qualifying and has to start in last place, but because McQueen has been training all the time, he comfortably beats most of the new car. Then Sterling arrives, and when he sees Cruz, he gets angry and wants him to leave, but McQueen hears it over the headset. Then there's an accident and McQueen comes to the pits. He wants Cruz to come back. When Cruz comes back, he puts the wheels on him and McQueen wants Cruz to race. Cruz at first refuses, but then agrees. When Cruz enters the race, McQueen takes the lead and starts giving him commands. Later in the race, Cruz manages to catch Jackson comfortably. At first, Jackson tries to confuse him, but McQueen supports Cruz and keeps him in the race. When they reach the final stretch, Cruz tries to pass Jackson. Jackson gets very angry and pushes him against the wall. Just at this moment, Doc Hudson manages to win the race with an incredible jump by doing the same move Cruz did. At the end of the race, Sterling offers Cruz to be his racer, but of course he refuses. Cruz chooses Dinoco and will now be Dinoco's racer. Sterling wants McQueen to end his career because he lost to him, but the sign shows that McQueen is counted among the winners. So, McQueen will end his career whenever he wants. When McQueen goes to Radiator Springs, he paints himself in Doc's blue to honor Doc Hudson. He is now Cruz's team leader and trainer, so Doc will train Cruz the same way he trained McQueen, and the movie ends this way. After that, even though the series Cars on the Road came out after this, but I didn't tell you about it because it doesn't have much to do with the story. Also, my favorite movie is Cars 3. Which one is your favorite? You can write in the comments. If this video gets 1,000 likes, I will continue to tell animated movies from beginning to end. See you in the next videos. Bye!